Lawrence here. Today I'm talking about restructuring your company when things are not working, right? So how do you go from 1.0 to 2.0? I just want to talk about some of the verticals that you can execute against. So thanks for joining. So what I'm going to talk about today is restructuring your business, okay? The first thing I think you need to think about is when do you do that and why would you do that? Sometimes in a business, things just stop working. So normally you would have to restructure your business if there was a legislative change and your business was attached to that particular change. Perhaps there's been a paradigm shift in the market, severe market change. Look at AI, right? How AI is changing the landscape of market and e-com, marketing and a whole bunch of other things. Sometimes there's a reason you have to restructure your business, and it's okay. And I think sometimes you can get the benefits out of that restructure, right? One thing I know about companies is that they can become very complacent doing the same thing the same way for many, many years. And then what happens is the market catches up on you and things change and it's really hard to pivot, right? So I'm going to talk about what my companies are going through at the moment. I'm forcing a restructure and a rechange of the company based off an EXO strategy, and I'm going to rebuild the company from the ground up. So I want to talk about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. We have a couple of strong education brands, right? And off the back of COVID, the market changed dramatically. So it forced large education institutions like universities, vet operators, private training providers to really look at the lens of technology and how they were delivering education. But universities really struggled, right? They had to pivot from traditional campus-orientated delivery to online delivery. And I think a lot of them struggled severely with that pivot, right? That change into that market, because that is a big shift for them. So, gone were the days of the lecture halls and going into classrooms, and during COVID, they had to figure out what that new business model looked like. I could imagine all the universities were frantic trying to figure out how they do that. So the ethos around what I'm talking today is sort of leveraged on the back of that, right? And AI was certainly an important part of that transition for that style of business. So if I talk about our education brands, and we have two of them, soon to be three, is we need to do it better. I really believe that during that COVID transition to digital learning and digital e-com, so, I remember reading the stats, I think globally 33 or 36% of e-com transactions, that's how much it increased. Like, that's such a big number. And I think the customer changed as well. I think the expectations became greater. They demanded more out of online providers, right? So we have a digital product that's delivered online. We're not quite a SaaS organization, but we do have an online product, right? So we really have to navigate and figure out how we deliver our product to the market. Yes, it's a sustainable market and it's a healthy market. I think in Australia, our market is $42 billion. Our industry sector, however, is much bigger than that. I think it's about $440 billion, right? So we work in a great sector, but the reason that I'm forcing change in our company right now is that I've started to see a trend down in revenue. So when you go to reinvent a company or restructure a company, there has to be a solid foundation as to why you would do that. Don't just do it on the basis of you think you should and you think the market is changing. Sure, if you've got a crystal ball and you're relatively good at that market and you can predict it pretty well, you could do that. And as a young company, it's probably a lot easier to do it. As a more mature company, it's very difficult to steer that ship in a different direction quickly, right? And now you've got to really sort of forecast out where's our risk matrix lie in terms of how long will it take us to pivot and reconstruct the business from 1.0 to 2.0. So there's a whole bunch of different types of considerations. I want to go back to the reason though. So the reason why I'm doing it is because I've seen a trend in customer engagement and sales decline in the last 12 months. We've been on a growth trajectory before COVID for many years since we started the company. And all of a sudden that started to flatten off and started to trend down slightly. So what I did is when I identified that in the P&L and the balance sheet, I went to the market and I started to research, right? So I spent 3 months researching what was happening. So I looked at the Fortune 500, Fortune 100. That forced me to look at just the top 100 companies. I did an analysis of the US market, the Australian market, New Zealand market in our space. And then, I just did general research about the economies of those countries, right? And what was happening in terms of spend, GDP. Got all the ones and zeros, dropped into a spreadsheet and really did a deep dive and an analysis. I won't go into all the detail. There are a couple of metrics though that stood out for me is that we're actually in a market that was positively moving up, but yet our cash flow was going down, right? That was a really important thing to realize is that I noticed that, well, our market sector and the industry that we service is on the increase, but for some reason our P&L in terms of gross sales was declining. That was a challenge to sort of unpack that and find out exactly what was going wrong. Long story short, what happened is I think the market and the consumer has changed, right? I think the expectation of the consumer had dramatically increased, so they wanted more from providers like us. I think recruitment had a huge impact on the company. I think we struggled to really find superior talent in the market. And I use the word talent, not staff. So finding the right talent. And I think what happened is the technology that supports our company just needed to be better, right? Yeah, sure, there are a whole bunch of other factors. I think there were, some people were closing their doors. I think people were trying to control their markets a little bit closer and work in a more secure box and mitigate risk. I know that some of the providers that are in our space went out of business and that the vet sector was challenged in this country particularly, and a whole bunch of other things, right? Okay, so let's just say, so that's been identified. I've done all the research. I did 3 months worth of research. Now you have to come up with a structure and a model on how you would restructure, right? I've selected a model called an exponential organizational model, right? Or an EXO. When I researched the top sort of 100 companies and certainly looked at the top 10 in our space, they run a particular style of model and a style of business. And I think we run a very healthy business here. We're a successful company, but unfortunately we're running some old systems, some old legacy systems in terms of technology that we need to upgrade, right? So my focus is to go through the company and upgrade all of our software. So our tech stack has to change for us to be scalable and to be scalable in a very healthy and easy way, right? If I was to give you an analogy of what that would look like, what an EXO company looks like as opposed to a traditional business linear model, right? So if you looked at Uber, right? So Uber could add a vehicle to their fleet. They don't even own that vehicle. They can do so using technology and quite seamlessly. So they're not purchasing the vehicle. There's no service costs. There's no licensing costs. There's no staffing costs in terms of acquiring and adding that asset to the fleet. Basically plug and play, right? The driver does an induction, off they go, the driver starts earning money, and then Uber gets paid, right? That's an EXO business, conducting and delivering an EXO model, right? If you looked at a traditional cab company, so they would own the license, they would have to pay a fee for the license and apply for the license. They would have to purchase a vehicle, or the vendor would have to purchase a vehicle. There would be a contract in play. It would take quite a long time for that person to get it. They work in quite a closed loop, so those contracts were very hard to come by, and they were very long-term contracts, which makes that closed loop very clunky and old to work with. There's maintenance costs of the vehicle that the cab company would have to cover. They would have garages, they would have fleets of cars, all this high cost. So that's an old style linear business, and an EXO business is basically a plug and play business. Now we're we're not a software company, but we have an online product. So we're in a position where we should be highly scalable, all right? So now I'm moving a business with an online product, improving the online product, and I'm going to move that business into a highly scalable company. And not just double the revenue, but we would exponentially increase that revenue over a period of time, right? Part of that model is we can scale the company as fast as we can scale technology. So I'll say that again, we can scale the company as fast as we can scale technology. And where our operating expenditure decreases, right? That's a really important point. So creating a business methodology and modalities inside that where we can scale the company, but OpEx goes down. Now that, to me, is the perfect marriage, because if we can achieve that, and I think we can, that's how we can scale the business. So in essence, what I'm saying is what I identified was that in a growing market sector, our business was declining in revenue. That forced me to do the research and to look at what was going wrong. So I did a deep dive on the balance sheet and the P&L, our OpEx and our sales, right? I identified a whole bunch of problems there. I pulled those out and I dropped them into a new model. So identified, okay, if we put these in a new model, what does that look like? I made a determination that we have to restructure the company on the basis of the decline. Right? And then put it into a new model and then look at what that would look like if we executed against it. So what I did is I created a forecast for 3 to 5 years. And in fact, I think I did it for 10 years and changed some of the algorithm in it. And then I stood back and had a look at what that looks like. It was incredible. So based on the math and the research, the algorithm in terms of gross sales, how you would apply an EXO model to that, it looked pretty good on paper. So I took the numbers on the sheet and then I tried to deliver that, and what would that look like in a physical execution strategy, like a business plan, and put that together. And that was where you identify where the real hard work comes in, right? Because you have to consider the culture of the business, where the business is at, the people that you have, the challenges that we have with recruitment, finding the right talent, because when you go to pivot a company from 1.0 to 2.0, you do need a lot of talent around you to be able to execute against that well, right? So I've gone through all of that and we're now ready to execute. So what I do is I meet with teams individually, talk about the strategy, why it's important, why I'm doing it, and what's the outcome of it, and what their journey looks like as part of that. I think that's really important because you want to take people along for a journey, right? Because you need them to support you in the execution of that, and everyone needs to be on the same page. So that's what we're doing right now, and that's how we're doing it. So I want to keep you abreast of those changes and that rollout and what that looks like, and I'll probably talk about that over the next sort of 3 to 6, maybe 12 months, and let you know where we go. So we're in a probably about a 6% decline currently in terms of the company. Now I don't mind talking about that, honesty and transparency, right? Because how do I turn that into a 6 to 10, 15% plus, right? That's my goal. Look, we can do that. I know we can do that. We have a good team, we have a great product, and we're a good company. So I know that we can do that. But it's all about strategy. It's all about key focus, right? Not chasing the unicorns running through the office, carrying shiny objects. And that's to get everyone congruent on the same goal. Look, AI for us is going to be a huge component of our business moving forward, a very big part of the business, and I'm going to be championing that, to the point where I'll go to Silicon Valley or Boston, New York. We will recruit some talent and we'll bring those back or have them work remotely and get them to help us navigate the landscape of artificial intelligence and how we incorporate that technology into the business to scale and to grow, right? And to be sustainable long term, because that's what we want to be. So look, I hope that helped. I want to talk more about the journey we're going through in terms of that transition from 1.0 to company 2.0. And it's exciting. And I think companies who go through it, sometimes it's good, right? In the age of the 21st century, as Ray Kurzweil predicted, everything is going to change, and we're up for it, and we are going to change the company over the next 12 months, and it's exciting. So I hope you enjoy the journey with me. Thank you for joining today, really do appreciate it. I look forward to speaking to you next time. Cheers.